guys, good evening and happy Saturday. Welcome to another episode of Off the Cuff with Dustin Heisey. So glad you could be here with me this evening. I'm super excited, man. We have an awesome topic, one that I really thoroughly enjoy discussing. We're going to get into some UFO stuff today, guys. I love this subject. It's just one of those things that in society, it's kind of like taboo. Either you're a believer or you're not. I mean, what side of the fence you fall on. I mean, let's talk to this gentleman that we have tonight and see if we can change some of your perspectives and some of your preconceived ideas of, what it's like, to believe in UFOs and to accept that UFOs are here or visiting us and things like that. So I'm super excited, guys. Happy for you guys to be here. If you haven't done it already, guys, please head over to YouTube. Go WLFE-DB radio on YouTube and hit that subscribe and notification bell so you never miss a video when we go live. Also, go Off the Cuff with Dustin Heisey on YouTube. All right, hit that subscribe, like button. Make sure you do that, guys. And then you never miss a video when we go live every Saturday at 8 p.m. And we have a great lineup of guests over the next few weeks. Super excited, guys. Stuff we're going to bring you is awesome. I really, honestly can't wait. So without further ado, I want to get right into it here. I don't want to waste a minute. My guest tonight, his name is Tom Conwell. This gentleman, I'm going to tell you right off the list that he sent me. Okay. He has been an electronic technician with the US Navy and Honeywell, Inc. for 42 years. Honeywell Temperature Control Fire Alarm Security Software Specialist. Biomedical Engineer, is a Fire Alarm Level 2 certified. Metrologist, which is the study of measurements. And HVAC Engineering resource. Tom has a wide-ranging expertise with a keen awareness of physics, computer and internet software, and broad knowledge of electronics and how it intersects with the paranormal world and UFOs. This is interesting to me. I want to get into that a little bit because that's something I really want to talk about, because this is how we really can determine, hey, look, I mean, paranormal activity, is it measurable? Is this something that we can actually make tangible? So this will be exciting. Tom studies databases as a forensic pattern researcher. Over the past 3 years, Tom has written 3 volumes of a book series. They are here, volume 1, 2, and 3. Self-published a collection of blogs, Going Interstellar, which I read today, and it is amazing. You guys definitely want to check this out. And recently completed Earthquakes and UFOs. He has studied and researched UFO sighting reports from the U.S. East Coast to the Central U.S. to the Western U.S. and given speeches about each of these subjects. Tom has assembled a map of UFO sightings, which has revealed many anomalies and is now an integral part of his research studies. Now, listen, I have personally seen this map. This thing is fascinating. It is a huge map of the United States, and what he's done is he's taken a pin and he's placed it on all these places that people have reported UFO sightings. And I'm not going to get into, I'll let him explain that to you because it's in a lot more detail than that. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to go ahead and bring him in and we'll get the show started. Tom, welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you so much for being here. We sincerely appreciate it.
Hi, Dustin. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get right into this, man. All right. So I first heard about you through your son at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. And how I came to stop was you had this incredible map sitting at his booth. That map, I believe, is what's sitting right there beside you. And it showed all of the different sightings of UFOs across the United States, but it was color-coded. How about you get into a little bit of that detail really quick?
Okay. Well, what I did was through the National UFO Reporting Center, I looked at all of the reported sightings. So there were approximately 75,000 reported from 2001 to 2015. Okay. And what I did was I wanted to put those on a map. Now, I never considered a U.S. map. What I wanted to do was regional maps. Because there were so many sightings, I knew I wasn't going to be able to get all of the pins in. Mm-hmm. So I had to cut it off. I had to cut it short some way. And I really wasn't sure how I was going to do that. So I tried individual maps such as New York and Pennsylvania. They worked out very well. and I was able to talk about the subjects with that. But once I started writing my second book, They Are Here Volume 2, I realized that I was leaving too much information out. And by not discussing it, I was selling my book short. So what I did was, from the middle of the US, I started creating this map. And then when I was done with the center of the US and having written volume 2, I went back and filled in volume 1. Now, the thing about this map is there were so many sightings that I couldn't put them all down on the map. So what I did was I put them into large clumps. There were approximately 50 different types of things seen. If you look at the National UFO Reporting Center's database, there were about 50 types of things reported. So what I did was I lumped them into groups, 7 different groups, and I took the top 3, and that's what I put on the map. So you see a whole lot of pins. There's a whole lot of stuff left out, okay? But I had to cut it short because I just didn't have any more room. So when I first started putting the pins in, the first state that I did was Ohio. And I knew I was going to have a problem because along Lake Erie, there are tons of sightings of UFOs. And then down around Dayton, there's another large group of UFO sightings. So what I did was combine the sightings, and I took the small pins and I took the same color of large pins, and I said the large pins equal 20 small pins. So I started putting large pins on the map when there was just too many of them. And that occurred quite a few different places. Like I said, Ohio had a bunch. So did anything around anywhere in the Great Lakes and along the ocean. Also, some of the bigger cities had some tremendous amounts of sightings.
So do you think this has to do with like the larger population centers? Is that why maybe, I mean, it's just because there's more people getting eyes on the UFO?
Part of it. I thought that was the only reason. I thought it was all population related. Well, it wasn't. It was population. It was the fact that there's some around lakes and oceans. And there were some that were out in the middle of seemingly nowhere, but there's a big collection of sightings. And that never made any sense to me. Why the heck was that happening? So I started looking at the reasons why those things may happen. And I went from things like power plants, nuclear sites, geography, storms, earthquakes. It's just a whole range. I looked at everything I could look at within each particular state, and that's what I included that research in with each state that I was researching.
Right.
And for all intents and purposes, I could not come up with a solid single reason why UFOs were in certain areas based on my research. Some of them just didn't make sense. Some were up in the mountains, and there were very few cities around, and a tremendous amount of sightings. The water sequences that I was able to say, well, okay, maybe these ships like to go into the water, either because there's a stop-off point, a base there, they're familiar with the water, or maybe the ships are overheating and need to get into the water and shed some of their heat. So I tried to look at absolutely everything, and it was a nightmare.
Did you ever come up with anything conclusive?
The closest I came is there's several reasons why they are in certain areas. Number one is the presence of water, specifically deep water. Number two is mountain areas. Seems like there's a collection of these craft over large mountain ranges.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the other things that I saw were, of course, population related. And funny, I saw lots of sightings out in the desert. Wasn't sure why that was. And then in my most recent book, Earthquakes and UFOs, I tried to prove that earthquakes and their resultant large release of energy were attracting UFOs. I couldn't prove that.
So it probably has something to do with like the electromagnetic field that's being created from these events. I mean, there's a lot of energy around mountain ranges because of how they were created in and of themselves, just being pushed up. A lot of energy was expended or created in the making of a mountain range. Energy is constantly moving, constantly flowing. I mean, in like a place where there's water, there's a lot of activity stuff that's going on. I'm just shooting in the dark here, but it sounds to me like a lot of it has to do with like maybe like the electromagnetic properties of these areas.
That certainly is a factor. And one of the things I did in my book, Earthquakes and UFOs, is I set forth a approximately 25 maps of things like rivers, lakes, mountain ranges, mineral resources. Let's see, Sasquatch.
Interesting topic.
Reports of giants, the deep underground military bases, magnetic anomalies. I included a map of each one of those kinds of things in there, so that if you wanted to do a little bit of research on your own and you had this book, you could take the map and compare it to some of the other maps and see if there's any particular crossover.
Okay. So do you actually get into researching that stuff? I mean, outside of UFO, you get into like Sasquatch and other anomalies that are out there?
I don't get into Sasquatch, and the reason for that is my research comes as a result of databases, and for Sasquatches, there's limited databases that are free to the public.
Oh, okay.
And I can't try to create one on my own because there's 500 different people holding various reports.
Right.
So you need a clearinghouse for that. And the Bigfoot Research Organization, I think, probably has something along those lines.
Okay, well, that'd be interesting. That's not a subject that I've really dug into a lot myself. I feel like that one's a little too far out there for me, and I think it's just because I really think that if there were Bigfoot, I think we would have a carcass by now. There would be something tangible that's just irrefutable evidence that something like this big hairy beasts exist. But so moving away from that, let's talk a little bit about you. Let's get into a little bit. How did you even get involved? I read that you really started your interest in the UFO subject matter as a young child, back before they even really started writing books on the subject. So what did you have a personal experience? Did you see something? Tell us how you got involved in all that.
Okay. Well, my aunt was the secretary of the Astronomical Association of America. So I was always like from a child, always wanting to go over to her house and look through her manuals, her books, and talk to her about what kind of research they're doing. you're right. There wasn't much written about UFOs. The first book that I remember is, what is it? UFOs Are Real, I think was the name of it. And that was, I can't recall the name right now. I'll remember a few seconds. But I must have read that book 70 times. And what it was is a compilation of UFO reports that people had seen and described to their the researcher. And I was hooked. I mean, that was it for me. That's all I needed. Then, of course, life got in the way, and joined the Navy and served there for 6 years, and Honeywell for 36. And then when I retired, I was free to do anything I wanted. And I jumped into paranormal and UFOs.
Okay, so you're very, very analytical. From what I've been able to ascertain, you're very calculated, and nothing that any conclusion that you have come to has not been without its due diligence. So, what basically, in your opinion, with all the work that you've done? Okay, and I'm kind of moving this a little bit to the paranormal because I think it all fits in the same thing. I think ufology, a lot of people see this as something that in and of itself is paranormal. It's outside of what we're used to. It's paranormal, and that ETs and it fit into that. So, but in terms of like ghosts and being able to like measure the existence or the energy field, is this something that you've really done a lot of work in?
Yes. When I first joined a paranormal organization, they, along with every other paranormal organization I had come across since, they take the information that they're learning from the TV, and a lot of times it's, well, truncated and not explained well. And then they utilize the instruments without understanding what it is that they're trying to measure or why or anything else. And you get a whole lot of misconceptions, false positives, and, well, nonsense. I never liked that approach. So every opportunity that I had, I wanted to take anyone that I came across and try to explain to them what's really going on in the world of electricity, and show them that a lot of what they're seeing is perfectly normal. So I guess for all intents and purposes, that I've become a teacher in that regard too.
It sounds like you've become a professional debunker.
Yes and no. I've had some pretty intense experiences, so I'm not into the debunking anymore because I've seen my share of nonsense, and I've also seen my share of unexplainable stuff. So I am a believer, but I try to keep people's expectations within the realm of what instruments that they're using, and have them try to understand what it is that they're actually doing with them.
Okay. So you got people like using EMF meters, and maybe they're just using them inappropriately. And your job essentially is to say, like, that's not exactly what that's used for. If you use it this way, you might have better results or something to that effect.
That's pretty much it. I like to try to tell people that EMF, what they're measuring with the K2 meter, the Mel meter, and the field strength meters, is that it's a wave, and it travels like a wave. It may not travel really far like a radio frequency would, but it does travel like a wave. And you have to consider where it is, what you're measuring, where all of the sources are, and look at it as Well, you have to look at it holistically. Let's face it. There's no other way to say this. You have to look at the big picture, and when you see the big picture, you have a better understanding of what you may or may not be measuring. Most people look at, hey, the lights are lighting on my little meter, therefore, and they draw their conclusions from there. And I don't like.
Right. So a lot of time paranormal investigators, and look, and if you watch any of these shows, sometimes it's just like, you have to shake your head. And look, there has to be an entertainment value there. There's got to be, sure. This transfer of value for somebody's time. So I think a lot of times these shows are kind of over exaggerating. They're overdoing what they're actually measuring, or even they might not be seeing anything at all. If you get nothing and you put that on a show, what's the point in watching the show, right?
Yes, but that's what paranormal investigating really is. Most of the time, you get nothing.
Right. So back to the world of ufology. I am fascinated by this, and I think what really bothers me the most about this is the government sticking their fingers in this, like they stick their fingers in everything. They got their fingers in everything today. It's just frustrating, and I think we're all so tired of it. But when it comes to disclosure, it all started with that crash in Roswell. Okay, they put out in the news the very next day that there was a UFO crash, an extraterrestrial being has been collected. And then right after that, the next day, they recant that and put out that, oh, I'm sorry, this was just a weather balloon. Why did they feel the need? In your opinion, why do you think they felt the need to just keep this away from the American public?
Well, they were concerned about people's reactions initially. That people would go crazy if they realized that there is something that can travel trillions and trillions and trillions of miles across the universe, show up on our doorstep, and fly circles around everything that we have. That won't be a good thing for the people who are living and walking around on the earth and looking up and seeing these things. If they tried to debunk it, tried to say it's nonsense from the very, very beginning, then they have a little bit of room, they have a little bit of time to collect some information and know what the heck they're dealing with. Right.
So, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, if I'm an adult in 1947, we just came through a major world war. I mean, our economy is coming back. I mean, of course, it was booming actually in World War II. We can get into that stuff, but things were starting to kind of come back to normal a little bit. I mean, so this is like for the timing for this to have happened, I feel like, the country was kind of like wide awake, at the time. And I just feel like, why at that particular time would that have been something they felt they would have needed to do? We've experienced tons of trauma. We've experienced things that we didn't even realize we could possibly experience, with World War II. I just don't understand the whole need for secrecy. I get what you're saying. I get it. But the government why does the government have to regulate this? Why can't it just let people deal with it? Give us the information. Even now, all these years later, why not just give us the information and let us discern what there is to discern? Let us have the opportunity to make our own opinions and form our own feelings. I get it. They're concerned about religion, the whole religious aspect. We've continuously, like, since the beginning of humanity, we've had a belief in, Christ or Christianity or Catholicism or whatever religion. It's all framework for a belief in a higher power. But they feel that that's a threat to that and that structure. But I still think that even today, in today's society, a lot of people are awake. A lot of people are seeing this. You've got Dr. Stephen Greer, who's come out and really took the disclosure movement to a whole nother level. And he's brought in, people from all walks of life, professionals, and they've disclosed what they know, and military professionals and so on. So why now, even today, are we still hiding this from the general public?
Okay. Well, there's a book out that is really, really interesting that goes into what would happen during disclosure. It was written by Richard Dolan, and AD After Disclosure is the name of the book. And what it does was it talks about what would happen in some scenario that they made up, that if they disclosed that all of a sudden they have found a ship, that this ship and the people involved are far, far advanced than us. And what would we do as a group of people? How would we react to that? And among the things that he said, I mean, there was a whole lot of different things, but among the things that he said that I thought was probably the most important is that the questions would start, especially from the news crews. How long did you know about these ships up there? Well, they're going to have to say something. And so you knew about ships being up there, and you knew what they could potentially do to us, and you kept it secret from us? Why would you do that?
Because we're from the government and we're here to help.
Yeah, well, they can only get away with that for so long. And then things like, well, wait a minute, these guys are extremely advanced, right? And of course, the government rep says, oh, yes, they are. Well, could they help us and cure all of our diseases? Like, now they've been holding that back. Okay. So then we got a whole nother issue. What else are they holding back? Infinite amount of power, so that we can have all the power that we want, and it doesn't cost us a penny.
Maybe it has something to do with some of that stuff. Maybe it has something to do too, competition with other world powers. I mean, giving us the upper hand. We have UFO technology, but I mean, if we have it, I mean, what's the likelihood that a UFO probably crashed in another country somewhere?
Oh, of
and they
course
have it as
did.
well.
Yeah, they all have various amounts of stuff that they've been able to figure out off of the ships that have crashed in their particular areas. The Russians have it. I'm sure the Chinese have it, and of course we do, and a few other countries. But all that we're doing is the onesie twosie, trying to figure out a little bit of this, a bit of electronics and a little bit of that, and maybe we'll make some progress, like we made back in 1950s when we first started looking into this stuff, and all of a sudden we came up with waveguide. And not waveguide, transmission of wave, a light through tiny pieces of glass. What do you call that? Oh, geez, I just drew a blank on that. But they figured out that particular technology right out of the UFO ships. And then all of a sudden, we're able to do things that we weren't able to do before, like high-speed transmission of data. Well, we were doing that over wires, and now we're doing it with light and I'm trying to think of that word, but it's gone. But anyhow, there's little
like
things.
wavelength. Are you talking about wavelength?
No.
Or Nothing like, okay.
Not wavelength, but of course wavelength is an aspect of it. But anyhow, so we all have something that we've recovered from these craft, and it is quite interesting. The advances that we've made in some of our electronics
from reverse engineering down ships. Do you think there is more than one? Or did they capture more than one ship from Roswell? I mean, do you think they're in Area 51? I mean, how does all that all play together? I mean, have you come across any of that in your research?
No. Basically because it's not on a database, and that's what I've tried to keep myself strictly within. But I've spoken with a whole lot of people, and the general consensus is there are multiple ships that have been recovered in crashes in various places of the country, Missouri and New Mexico and Pennsylvania, and they're just little things that are adding up to the whole enchilada, the whole big amount of information that we would have to put together to do what they do.
Yeah, I'd be very fascinated to know what facilitated the crash. I mean, this is a highly advanced technology. What facilitated the crash? Was it shot down? I mean, we've heard of the Battle of Los Angeles. We've heard of those things. Why would this advanced technology be able to make it all the way here, light years away from wherever they came from, just to crash on our primitive planet?
That's a real good question. It could have been something simple like a lightning strike, and maybe they had an overload in their electronics, or it could have been that someone shot one of our primitive missiles at it, but that's not very likely because these things can maneuver like who knows what, and they see something slogging along through the atmosphere coming up at them, or they'll just move out of the way. Chances are we didn't shoot them down, although maybe in the whole scheme of things, we did shoot one or two down over the years. But I think that mostly things that have happened on our planet were responsible for them crashing. And again, one thing you have to think of, the higher tech electronics that you put together in a particular in any kind of design, the more susceptible that electronics is to little tiny things like static electricity. We started making our tubes, the great big tubes. It used to have to heat up to make your TV work. And then we went to transistors, which were little things that maybe approximately the size of your fingernail. And then we were able to put thousands of transistors on one little point. Every time we did that, we became, the electronics that it was put in became more and more susceptible to static electricity. So I don't find it unreasonable that these ships just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and was struck by lightning and had an overload and went down.
It's definitely possible. Okay, so we have to take a quick break.
Sure.
Guys, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about abduction, alien abduction, some of the abduction stories that Tom has spoken with people about, if he's willing to get into some of that. And then I also want to touch on crop circles. We're going to touch on that a little bit. And I want to go back to ancient times. I want to talk about places like Göbekli Tepe and ancient civilizations and their connection to our modern UFO sighting. So if you will, guys, stick around for a few seconds here. We got to run a commercial, and please like and share. Go to Off the Cuff with Dustin Heisey on Facebook. Hit that share button, like. We appreciate you doing that. It definitely helps us get out there. Also, go to YouTube. It's WLFE-DB radio. And go ahead and like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video when we go live. All right, guys, we'll be back in a second here with more with Tom Conwell.
Gettysburg Ghost Exchange, the largest paranormal store in the Northeast, settled in Gettysburg, PA. Your one-stop ghost shop featuring the paranormal equipment, metaphysical items in the hands of light Reiki. Equipment such as static pods, REM pods, spirit boxes, motion lasers, camcorders, night vision binoculars, lighting, voice recorders, and body cams. Other items such as sage, Palo Santo, gems, jewelry, salt lamps, candles, Deadly Grounds coffee, and oils. Paranormal investigations of Jenny Wade House, Haunted Orphanage, Historic 1912 Hoover House, David Stewart Farm. Gettysburg Ghost Exchange, 271 Baltimore Street, Gettysburg, PA 17325. Contact us at 717-521-7465. Visit Historical Gettysburg and stop in and say hello.
Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE-DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam! There you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com. Rochester Winter Parafest is back. March 25th, 26th, and 27th of 2022. Come say hi to Naked and Afraid celebrities Melanie Elizabeth and Trent Nielsen, Haunted Case Files Jack Kenna, Monster Quest Steve Coles, and more. This event has it all: paranormal investigators, UFO researchers, Bigfoot researchers, and even photo opportunities for the kids with Buddy the Bigfoot. Oh, okay, adults too. Come on down and get a tattoo from Ink Master Tony DeVille. There are psychic gallery and individual readings, as well as radio personalities, authors, jewelry, makeup artists, and so much more. It's only $15 per person, and children under 10 are free. March 25th, 26th, and 27th of 2022. For more information, go to WLFE-DB.com. Yes, Winter Parafest is back. Valley Oak Event Center, Geneseo, New York, next to Denny's.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging in there. Appreciate it. We are joined by guest Tom Conwell. He is a ufologist, and we've been talking about just about everything, and we're going to jump right back into it. I want to talk to you about something that is really taboo, really kind of goes out there, UFO abductions. Now, alien abductions, pardon my French. You have done interviews with abductees, and you've become very adept at telling whether an abductee is actually telling you the truth or if they're feeding you a line of BS. So talk to me a little bit, if you could, about some of the conversations that you've had. Tell me about one of the most mind-boggling UFO abductions stories that you've been told.
Okay, well, I can't get too specific, and the reason I can't is because I gave people my absolute word that I'd never repeat their stories, because many of them didn't even want to talk to me. And when they finally agreed, then I had to agree, and I've kept my word right up until this moment that I will not tell what they had to go through, because a lot of times what they had to go through was something that was pretty traumatic for them. So you can imagine someone in your family going through something traumatic, and then you mention it to your friends. I mean, it gives you that icky feeling.
Yeah.
So
well, let me ask you this: can you talk about it in sort of like vague terms? I mean, without talking about who it was involved, just maybe talk about the experience without divulging maybe who or anybody that was involved.
Okay, sure. I'll give you little pieces of what people have told me. One person told me that they were talking with their friend over at their house, and they were outside, and they noticed a ship in the air up over one of the houses across the street, and started staring at it and walked over to it. And he said the next thing he remembers, it was about 4 hours later, and he was in his bedroom and couldn't remember anything about what happened. And that is a frequent thing, that people have lost time and something has happened to them and they don't remember what. There's another person who, and this doesn't happen too often, there's another person who was aware that they were being taken, and they saw the aliens come into the room and took them through the wall and up through the roof and up into the ship. And
they went right through the roof of their house.
Right, transitioned through the wall, through the roof, right up into the ship.
And you found their story and themselves to be credible?
Yeah, I asked them about 50 different ways, various things, and they told me that they were with somebody. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Can I talk with them? And I was able to talk with that person, and they told me the same story.
Okay.
So yeah, I was pretty convinced of this one. And then another person saw a bunch of various. I guess the only way I could describe it is an eclectic group of extraterrestrials of different types: a tall gray, a short gray. Well, actually, there's several short grays, and a praying mantis-like thing, and who was holding a clipboard. And that has happened to them. Well, it probably wasn't a clipboard. It was probably something like an iPad.
But it's something that they can relate to. It's relatable.
Yeah. And so, I've heard a whole bunch of stuff along these lines, and some of them have been troublesome for me. And I listened to people's stories for approximately, I guess, about 9 months. So a whole bunch of people came to me, about 30 different people, and I interviewed them either in person or on the phone. Mm-hmm. And after a while, I couldn't listen to anymore. I couldn't take it anymore.
It just got to be overwhelming for you.
I didn't want to hear it. Yeah.
Now, why didn't you want to hear it? What about that started to overwhelm you? Was it something specific, or were you just absorbing too much of that energy that they were putting out to you?
Well, I don't know if I was absorbing energy. Well, other than they'll tell me things, and then I'll go to bed at night and dream about them. That's no fun. Mm-hmm. Or I'll wake up in a cold sweat thinking about something, and try and actually relive some of the terror of what the people were telling me. It wasn't any fun. So I said, that's enough out of that. No more abduction interviews.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I did that for my own good. Someone actually I was telling a story, something similar to that in a talk. I think I was at Scarefest in Kentucky, and someone came up to me and asked me, told me that I didn't sound believable because I came across as too wimpy.
Too wimpy.
Wimpy, yeah. Well, I thought about it for a few seconds, and I said, well, okay. I told them that I couldn't take anymore, and I had to get out of doing that. And I guess because I'm human, if that makes me seem wimpy to him, oh well, I mean, there's not much I can do about it. I get all kinds of things.
Shane Pinson has a question for you.
Yeah, I see
what do you think about the Jackie Gleason, Richard Nixon story, and how credible do you feel that is?
I think it's probably fairly credible. I don't have any reason to doubt it.
Do you know any of the particulars about that? Because I'm a little rusty on this one. As a matter of fact, I'm a lot rusty. I didn't even know that they had an experience, so I'm kind of curious about that now myself.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, Nixon was shown. Something that really bothered him. He saw some extraterrestrials. He was shown by the military, and then later on that day, or the next day, or within a couple days, he and his good friend Jackie Gleason, he took Jackie over to the base and showed him what he saw, and it really freaked out Jackie Gleason.
And that's why presidents are now no longer put in the inner circle.
Yeah,
that would explain that.
Yeah, probably. But I'm sure that he was very freaked out. He was pretty much freaked out in somewhat the same way that the American public would be, or would have been back in the 50s had they disclosed then.
Okay. Well, let's move on. We're I'll tell you, time is just trucking along here. I've been wanting to talk to you about crop circles. Crop circles is one of my favorite subject matters. Okay, because these things just show up. All right, and people are like, well, no, it was man-made or this and that, and they've shown how man can do this. But here's the thing: crop circles actually create more questions than they answer. First of all, these things just show up, and first of all, they're just geometric shapes that are all mathematically impossible for a human to create in the span of one night. We're talking about things that happen to crops that are just not humanly possible. They've got to be extraterrestrial in nature, because we're talking about stalks of anything. Could be corn, it could be wheat, it could be whatever, that has been changed at the molecular level. Okay, we're talking about at the cellular level, that have been changed to bend these things over and not break them. And then there's evidence that something that was inside has come out. And for that to happen, it had to be something that was brought to a boiling point and steam evacuated from the inside of these things. So that's not something that I feel that a human being can do. But then on the other side of it, and you mentioned this in your book, and I think this is one of the best best questions, or the best things anybody's ever said about this. Okay, you never see any partials. Okay, where are the partials? I mean, if it was human, somebody's going to get caught somewhere. Someone's going to, a farmer's going to be watching this. Hey, there's somebody in your field. There's dogs barking, something, and they're going to run away from it because they don't want to get thrown in prison. There's no partials. These are all completed. So that to me also takes the human aspect out of it a little bit. So I just think that in my opinion, most of these crop circles that we're seeing that are just so geometrically complicated and mathematically precise have absolutely nothing to do with human beings. So what's your take on crop circles? Do you think they're put here do they mean something in like direction? Are they directions? This go past this one to get here. I mean, or is there a hidden message in the mathematics?
Okay, well, I'm almost certain that there's a hidden message of some sort. I've always wanted to get the list of crop circles and their pictures sequentially from the first one to the most recent one, and put them in a book, one after the other as they occurred, to see if there's some sort of story there. Very, very difficult. When you mentioned it before, when the circles are made, they're made sometimes within a minute to 2 minutes. And one of the people who said the reason why some of these crop circles are occurring is because in nature there's things like vortexes and energy releases in various places of the atmosphere, and they would they could presumably come down and imprint something on the planet. It's possible, I guess. It's possible. But
we don't know for sure, so we have to accept the fact that it's possible.
Yeah. When you talk about that, the element of nature that comes into it, and you did mention this, the element of nature that comes into this, if you have a tornado going across an area and it starts ripping up houses, and then all of a sudden, for no reason at all, it just jumps up over top of a house and goes to another house. These are the random things that occur within the environment, and these things would act on any of these natural occurrences. And the absolute reason why most of the crop circles are done by some other kind of intelligence. I don't know who they are. Maybe they're even done by extra dimensionals. Who knows? They don't necessarily have to be from a different planet. Just have to be. They have to be advanced.
Right. Okay, I'm going to pull up a photograph here. I'm working on it here. Mm-hmm. I'm going to share this. This is one that you actually shared in your book. And I'm going to share this one because this is so geometrically impossible for it to have been done by a man. So give me a second here. I'm going to just pop this up.
Is that some of them are so complex that you would need a human would need about 3 weeks of time to put this thing together. Yeah, that one in particular, I saw that, I couldn't believe my eyes. Very, very difficult.
Well, first of all, look at the sheer size of that thing.
Yeah,
that thing, it's megalithic. It's monstrosity.
Yeah, sure is.
And we're talking about things that these circles were done so precisely and so within such a minuscule margin of error that it is virtually impossible for that to have been done by a human being. There's just, I can't get my head around that. And there's others too. And if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and I'll click through some of this stuff, and we'll, while you guys are watching, hey, I don't care. Check this out. See, look at this one. Okay. This thing is, okay, well, inside the mystical world of crop circles, the tourism, look at that thing. Look at that thing. Can you all see that?
No.
Oh, really? Give me a second here. All right. Oh, the stream kicked out. Okay. Well, I'll try it again. Because this one here is just it's remarkable. This was in England. Take a look at that thing. I mean, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That star, first of all, look at the edges of that star. They are so perfect. It's so straight.
Mm-hmm.
And the spacing between that, somebody needs to show me somewhere how this is possible. Okay. Somebody needs to show me how this is possible. If a man can do this, first of all, a farmer doesn't want to lose that much of his crop. That's a huge loss right there. Okay. We're talking about a lot of crop damage at a huge expense. And you have to understand the area that covers is massive. And do you think that somebody would get away with going into somebody's crops and destroying them like that? I don't think they would.
No, there's no way. And this is just two that you showed us. Some of these are just incredible, and they're made overnight.
Absolutely. I want to show you another one, and I want this one to be. Give me a sec here because I want it. Wow. I mean, that one's incredible, but that to me looks more man-made. Wow, there's so many incredible guys. If you guys go onto Google and search crop circles, I mean, some of these things are remarkable. But I want to show you one more before we jump off of this topic that I think is just impossible for a man to have created. All right. Did I lose that feed again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nope. It's telling me that it wants me to do, it wants me to subscribe, and I'm not going to do that. So what we'll do is I'll just come back and we'll skip that. But this particular, go to Google, guys, and just search some of those. It is mind-boggling. There's, if you think a human being did that, I think you're crazy.
Yeah.
So one of the things, like, what is there? First of all, do you know of what's the latest? I mean, what is the latest crop circle? Have you seen anything recent come up?
I have a friend who investigates crop circles, and he showed me some pictures of several that happened in the spring, but I haven't heard anything since then.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, have you ever personally visited any sites like that? Have you ever personally examined a crop circle?
No, but I would love to. The ones that are man-made are crushed down from the ground and crushed flat from the ground. The ones that were made by man, they have no semblance of recognizability when you compare it with the other ones. The other ones are let me go back and mention that when a man makes a crop circle, that they have to step down on the crop, and the crop bends from the ground down. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What happens in some of the more interesting crop circles is they bend over about 6 inches to 1.5 feet above the ground.
Right.
And it's usually at a seam, and the seam is superheated, and it's blown out because the water's ejected, and the crop just lays flat, and it lays perfectly. The other thing is the crop continues to grow. The ones with crop circle, they continue growing.
Right. Now, take a look at some of these. This crop circle over here on the right, this one here is one I wanted to show you. This is one where Amazon wants you to subscribe. But take a look at the patterns in this
Yeah.
and how absolutely complex this is. How could that possibly be done by a human being? And it not take as long as it would take to actually grow the crops. You see what I'm saying?
Sure. Oh, sure. And not only that, once it's pressed down by the human, it will stop growing at that point. Otherwise, they will continue to grow.
Right. Now look at this. Now to me, that's something that that's interesting. This crop circle is interesting to me. But it looks like to me that that's something that was probably most likely done by somebody who planned it. It's,
Yes.
That looks man-made to me because it looks like a circuit board. What really stands out to me as being extraterrestrial are things like, let's have a look at like this one. Like over here, that to me looks somewhat extraterrestrial. The flow that you have with the pressing down of the grains, that looks extraterrestrial to me. This looks extraterrestrial to me. Look how clean and perfect that is over here. This, I'm not sure if you guys can still see that. I'm going to try to enlarge it. There we go. That's not showing, unfortunately. Let me try to put that on again, because this is beautiful and I want to show it to you before I stop sharing stuff. This crop circle, guys, is really cool. Give me a sec. There you go. You guys seeing that yet? There we go. Check that thing out. That is amazing. I mean, again, we're looking at perfect symmetry here. We're looking at something that is, it's, first of all, show me too, where did anybody walk out there? And how much time would a man have to really invest to do this? Would he stay out there for hours upon hours upon hours? I mean, and not make any, feet, there's no evidence of foot travel out to the site. You see, to me, that answers some of the question. So Steve here says, do they have a way to test for specific chemicals in the markings? That's a good question. There is, they maybe not chemicals, but I do think that a lot of these crop circles have an energy field to them where you can literally step into that crop circle. And as soon as you cross the plane of that crop circle, people talk of their hair standing up on end. There's energy there. Yep. What have you come across in your experience?
And the cameras fail, and the meters that they use fail. Yeah, it has big problems to the electronics. Mm-hmm. You can't even use them.
Right. So again, that kind of takes away the human aspect out of crop circles. So the question then comes like, why are they doing it? Why are they putting these things here? Again, we've talked about this a little bit, and the only thing that we can really come up with is there's a hidden mathematical message in that circle. What it is, we would need a code, something to break the code with. Mm-hmm. There's what do they call that? I forget. It's the codex essentially. Without a codex, it would have to be like a universal codex or something to be able to decipher what type of language they're using to even begin to think about the possibility of decoding what it is.
Yeah, and if it's a universal anything, it's probably mathematics.
Facebook user, I don't know who you are, but just like on Ghost Hunters, that's crazy. It cuts out the cameras. Yeah, I mean, it does. That energy field. And look, this is a potential thing for, like, let's talk about Gettysburg. Gettysburg is one of my favorite places on the planet. I go there, and a lot of paranormal investigators talk about the fact that when you go to Devil's Den, you can't take photographs. There's people talk about their cameras failing. Now, it's specific cameras. I think since new technology, everyone has a camera on their cell phone. I've taken a multitude of pictures at Devil's Den, never had any issues with that. However, you go back to some of the older, technology, like, AA powered stuff. batteries would go dead. I mean, and even still, there are paranormal investigators that have that experience at the Gettysburg battlefield, where their power will drain, things to that nature. And people's explanation for that is that's the spiritual energy that's drawing energy from the camera to attempt to manifest itself. But I do find that to be interesting when you're talking about things like crop circles or investigating paranormal hotspots like Gettysburg battlefield or any battlefield in the United States. It's you experience that shift in the energy field, and you yourself have been able to come up with ways or use your skill set, your expertise to find ways to actually measure those things. Is that correct? Or
well, yeah. If you have a variety of instruments with you, chances are one of the ones is the one that's not electronic will most likely be able to do a measurement on it. One that has an analog meter to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, look, wow. This hour went super fast. Tom, thank you so much for being here. I could literally talk about this stuff for days. It's a fascinating subject for me. You know what, though? I do want to talk about one thing. I have to talk about this, even though we're running over time here. This is something that I have pondered for a very long time. You go on to any of these TV shows, we're talking about ancient aliens, we're talking about anything about ancient cities. You go back to a place like Göbekli Tepe. Okay, that is the oldest civilization ever found in the world. It's in, I think, Turkey. And there is megalithic stones that were moved into place somehow by something, and they created this megalithic site where sheer tonnage of stones. We're talking about ancient civilizations. We're talking about the beginning of civilization as far back. What did they say? Göbekli Tepe. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. They said they think it predates what we originally thought the human existence began by like something like 10,000 years or some crazy thing like that.
Yeah, it predates the last two great floods.
Okay, we're talking about something
that's way back.
Biblical times. We're talking before biblical times.
Yeah, pre-biblical. Yep.
So now, how does this tie into ufology? Now, this is the crazy thing. Like, you look at some of their carvings on these and their carvings alone on those rocks, they are out. They're not carved into the stone. They're placed on the outside of the stone. So we're talking about you'd have to remove layers and layers of stone to create an embossed image like you see on these stones in Göbekli Tepe. Are you telling me that this ancient civilization was able to do that with primitive stoneware, stone tools? I have to believe that these ancient civilizations were probably far more advanced than we are now. And I personally think that there's potential that some of these ancient civilizations that did exist had technology to get themselves the hell out of here before these great floods actually hit the planet. I mean, could that be a possibility?
Oh, sure. I'm preparing a speech now about the name of the speech is going to be something along the lines of are they here now? Meaning, are we being visited now? How long ago did they get here? And what's the evidence? So I'm looking at all the various things. So such as the continent of Lemuria that existed in either the Pacific or the Indian, or maybe both oceans, and that was populated by a very advanced race. Now, was this advanced race? Were they extraterrestrials? Were they just advanced humans? If they were, what happened to them? why did they just go away? Because humans survived the floods, because when they came back from the floods, they had populations of people all over the map, everywhere. And so where did these people come from? Were these people extraterrestrials? Were they did they mate with extraterrestrials? Were they taken up in ships for protection and brought back after the water subsided? Just all these questions. And I believe that we had very advanced races on the planet. I think that these advanced races were most likely extraterrestrial and mated with the people that we had available on the earth at the time, and it created modern day humans.
Interesting. Very interesting. So do you, and this is a personal question, and I like to, I throw them at you sometimes, so don't feel like you have to answer if you don't want to, but do you consider yourself a religious person? Do you believe in God, or do you believe in a higher power? What's your position on that?
I believe that there is a God. I don't believe in religions because I think they're all nonsense.
Kind of like somebody wrote a book and put it out there, and it's just maybe a form of control to some people. They think that's what the Bible is. It's just a way to control people.
Something along those lines, yeah. Control, I don't know about control, but I was raised Catholic, and I didn't like much of anything that I was told.
I was actually baptized in the Catholic Church, and I too chose to step away from that. It just did not feel that it was a good fit for me. I went a different way. I do consider myself a Christian, and that's just where I fall into things. So I always try to relate things to my faith and my belief in Christ. But when you talk about these types of things, you've got to be more open-minded, and you have to be willing to accept that, hey, God, okay, whatever he looks like, okay, created this incredible universe. All right. Who's to say that God didn't create everything that's out there, including this multitude of different civilizations and so on and so forth. This is a whole nother show that we can get into here. Sure. But I just feel that I think that it all can cohere. I think one question can answer the other. But really, there's nothing tangible that we could really dig into here. It's just a matter of faith. And I think that's what, the subject of ufology. Yes, it's a matter of faith a little bit, but that is something that can be measured tangibly because we have video, photographic evidence, and personal experiences, people that have passed lie detectors, incredible audio recordings of some of people that early folks that have been abducted. And I should have shared some of that audio here today because some of the most incredible audio I've ever heard in my entire life. But again, well, thank you so much for talking with us today. Tell people how they can get a hold of your publications.
Okay. Well, every book that I have is available through Amazon. You just search for my name. I write under Thomas W. Conwell. So if you searching for Tom, you may not even see the book because there's so many. There's even multiple Thomas Conwells on there, believe it or not. But Thomas W. Conwell, and the names of my books are They Are Here. That's Volume 1. They Are Here, Volume 2. They Are Here, Volume 3. Going Interstellar. This book, the picture on the book was something that someone saw when I was doing a talk. They saw that in the air and they drew it for me. They drew it on a cup.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And gave me the cup. So I transposed it onto the piece of paper and used that as one of my one of my covers. And then Earthquakes and UFOs.
Outstanding.
And again, I write Thomas W. Conwell. And you can search for it. And the last book that I said, if you search for Thomas W. Conwell, you wouldn't see the last book. And I don't understand that. You see the first 4, but you wouldn't see the last one. You have to search for Thomas W. Conwell and Earthquakes. And all of a sudden,
there it is. Voila.
Stupid. Yeah.
All right. So, guys, go check him out there, Amazon.com. Thomas W. Conwell. Search that. And if you want to find his earthquake books, to make sure you add in earthquakes in that search criteria. Tom, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to drop you out of the stream. Hang on for a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. I will talk with you in a few seconds.
Okay.
But thank you so much for being here. It sincerely was an honor to have you on our show. And I do sincerely thank you again.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's show. It was a lot of fun. There was so much more. Look, I didn't even get into it. I mean, I had this whole sheet of paper I wanted to talk about, and it definitely would have taken hours to do because it's such a fascinating topic. Please, if you guys haven't done it already, please hit that like and share button on Facebook. If you haven't gone over to YouTube, please do that. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video when we do go live. We go live every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you don't want to miss it. We have a great lineup of shows coming up. I'm going to break ranks here a little bit. Normally, I don't put out what show we're doing until Wednesday, but I'm super excited. The next couple of shows are going to be really great. We have a gentleman coming on here who talks. He's like a spiritual healer. He does cleansings and things of that nature. So this is definitely, we're talking about like bad energy, things like that. He clears all that. So you definitely want to get in and check that show out next week. Next week. You don't want to miss that. So thanks a lot for being here, guys. I sincerely do appreciate it. We do have a new Patreon. We started that. So go to patreon.com and search for Off the Cuff with Dustin Heisey. Become a patron. It can be as low as $1 a month. Anything helps as our expenses. As we expand, our expenses go up here a little bit. So that would definitely help us out, and we would sincerely appreciate that. So patreon.com, do a search for Off the Cuff with Dustin Heisey. I will post the link for that here in the future. That site is under development, but what's really cool about you becoming a patron is we will send you an autographed. I will send you an autographed Off the Cuff hat, the same hat that I'm wearing here. As a $5 a month subscriber, you'll get one of these. And then as the tiers go up, the things you receive go up. And it hasn't been listed on the Patreon yet, but we're working on that. So what we'll do is you'll get exclusive behind the scenes, and you can get involved with the back chats. We'll bring you into our back chats, and you can actually have a private discussion with myself and a guest, as long as my guest wants to stick around. You'll also get exclusive episodes that we aren't going to air, things that we'll do just for our patrons. And then we'll also, as the tiers go higher, every 3 months, we'll send you a gift. It'll either be a mug or a hoodie or a t-shirt or something to that effect. So that's what you get. That's my value proposition for you. So please head over to patreon.com and do a search for Off the Cuff with Dustin Heisey. Sincerely appreciate that, guys. Thanks for sticking around, man. It's been a long show tonight. I had a lot of fun. Please come back next week on Saturday at 8 p.m. Don't miss it. And again, thanks a lot, guys, for going Off the Cuff with Dustin Heisey. We sincerely do appreciate it. Have a great week.